it up with a text that sliced deeper than any blade. Don't ever contact us again. We consider you a stranger now. Seconds later, my sister hearted it. For a moment, I just stared. No tears. No shaking hands. Just a hollow calm that felt almost freeing. Then, I typed one word. Approved. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. 10 minutes later, the lights in their perfect suburban mansion went out. All of them. The same house where I once slept in the attic because my room was needed for storage. The same house where my mom told me, "You'll never make it without us, Haley." I stood by my apartment window, city lights flickering across my reflection. My phone started buzzing.
Mom.
Then Dad. Then Samantha. Over and over. For years, they ignored my calls. Now, they couldn't stop making them. The irony? Priceless. I didn't answer. I just watched the little green light flash with every desperate attempt, every second of panic I'd earned them. Then came the final call from Dad. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. "Haley, what did you do?" His voice cracked between fury and fear. I smiled faintly. "Looks like karma pays better than your lawyers, huh? Don't play games with us. Our power just went out." "Oh, so now you need me to fix something again? Cute." He cursed under his breath, but I didn't flinch. "Haley," he said lower now, "don't forget who raised you." I let out a soft laugh. "You mean who disowned me? Don't worry, I've got the text to remind me." Then I ended the call. The silence afterward wasn't empty. It was electric. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't their disappointment. I was the storm they created. And that night, as the rain started pounding against the glass, I whispered to myself, "You wanted a stranger? You got one." By sunrise, my phone looked like a crime scene. 27 missed calls, 8 voicemails, and a few messages that bounced between begging and blaming. "Mom, please call me back. The whole house is down. Power, internet, even the security gate." "Dad, you've gone too far. Fix this, or you'll regret it." "Samantha, what's happening, Haley? Please just talk to us." I scrolled through each one slowly, sipping coffee that tasted better than freedom. Every word was a tiny echo of the years I'd spent trying to be heard. Now their own silence had finally answered back. Ryan, my systems engineer, walked into the office with his usual cautious tone. The Monroe estate grid still dark. "Want me to restore the line?" I looked out the glass wall of my downtown office. "Not yet." He hesitated. "They'll trace it soon." "They can try," I said, setting down my cup. "But it's not about power anymore. It's about memory." 2 years earlier, I was the invisible daughter who begged for help when Dad's company fired me for optics. They told investors the company was a family operation, then told me I wasn't family. They took my patents, my research, and my name off every report I wrote. I built Helix grid systems out of that humiliation. Quietly, legally, efficiently. The very same smart energy network that powered half of their estate was now under my company's management contract, signed by them, never noticing the owner's name behind the shell. I hadn't planned revenge back then. I just wanted independence. But power, real power, changes how you define justice. Ryan cleared his throat. "Their lawyer called the customer hotline 3 times this morning. They're losing it." "Tell them the issue is being investigated," I said. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me. "Haley, you look like someone who's been waiting years for this." "I have." Outside, the city shimmered under a cold winter sun. Across the skyline, their glass tower, Monroe Realty, stood like a monument of everything they stole from me. And now, for the first time, cracks were starting to show. A news alert popped up on my screen. Monroe Realty faces data breach investigation. I hadn't lifted a finger. Life was doing its own balancing act.
My phone buzzed again, Mom.
I almost ignored it, but something inside me wanted to hear what desperation sounded like from her. "Haley," she whispered, I told you not to call. I'm sorry, sweetheart, she said quickly. I don't know what's going on. Your father's furious, but please, just help us. The house is freezing. I leaned back in my chair. When I was living in that old studio with a broken heater, you told me to toughen up.
Remember that.
I didn't mean. You did. I cut her off, my tone calm, measured. And now you get to feel what that means. She sobbed softly before hanging up. For a moment, the satisfaction stung more than it soothed. I'd waited so long for this, but it didn't taste like victory. It tasted like closure halfway gone bad. Later that afternoon, Ryan returned. Grid reports complete. If you approve, we can restore their connection within the hour. I stared at the file. One click. That's all it would take to end the blackout.
Wait, I said.
Send a notice to all clients explaining the brief outage was part of system recalibration. Include Monroe Realty in the batch. He raised an eyebrow. So you'll turn it back on? Eventually. But I want them to sweat a little longer. He nodded slowly. You're ruthless. No, I said quietly. I'm remembered. By evening, I drove out toward the coast, the same route I used to take when I wanted to escape the noise of that house. Back then, I'd sit on the cliffs and watch the city lights shimmer like unreachable stars. Tonight, those lights looked closer, mine almost.
My phone buzzed again.
This time, a video call.
Samantha.
I answered. Her face was pale, makeup streaked, eyes red. Mom's panicking. Dad's yelling at everyone. They're saying you did this, Haley. Tell me they're wrong. I said nothing for a moment, just watched her eyes dart with fear. They treated you horribly, I know, she said. But destroying everything won't fix it. I smiled sadly. You think this is destruction? It's education. Please, she whispered. You're not them. Don't become them. That hit harder than I expected. I ended the call, turned off the ignition, and just sat there. The ocean wind cut through the open window, cold and clean. Maybe Samantha was right. Maybe revenge wasn't about breaking others. It was about finally letting yourself stop breaking. But I wasn't done yet. Not until they understood what losing someone truly felt like. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with their board of directors, under my alias, the same one who'd been slowly buying shares from their panicked investors all week. By Friday, the Monroe name wouldn't be on that tower anymore. I glanced at my reflection in the dark glass of my office window. The girl who once begged for her parents' love was gone. The woman staring back, steady, unflinching, had built her own empire out of rejection. I picked up my phone, typed one more message, and hit send. To Mom, Dad, Samantha. You taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. I finally learned the lesson. Enjoy the silence while it lasts. Then I turned off my phone. The world outside kept spinning, their mansions still dark on the horizon. But inside me, for the first time, there was light. By the end of the week, the Monroe family name, once plastered across glossy billboards, had turned into breaking news. Monroe Realty's CEO under investigation for fraud allegations. Luxury mansion hit by system failures amid power grid scandal. It was everywhere. Reporters outside their gates. Paparazzi flashing through the rain. The family that once looked down on everyone else was now drowning in their own arrogance. I didn't lift a finger to spread it. Truth just traveled faster when arrogance fell. From my office window, I watched the downpour blur the skyline. The same rain that once soaked me as I waited outside that mansion door years ago, suitcase in hand, hearing my mother say, "We can't keep rescuing your failures."
They shut the door that night.
I learned to build my own. Ryan stepped in, breaking my thoughts. We've officially acquired 36% of Monroe Realty's shares under Helix Holdings. I turned toward him, the corner of my mouth curving. That means we're the largest shareholder. He nodded. Board meetings tomorrow. They'll be desperate for answers. Good, I said. Let them hear mine. I walked toward the glass wall, watching lightning split the sky. My reflection was sharp, tailored blazer, calm eyes, steady breath. That's what power looked like when it wasn't given, it was earned. The next morning, The boardroom smelled like tension and stale coffee. The remaining Monroe executives whispered to one another until I entered. None of them knew me yet, not the real me. "Who's this?" one man muttered. "Haley Sinclair," Ryan introduced. "Representative of Helix Holdings." I smiled politely. "Pleasure." When the meeting started, the room buzzed with panic, financial losses, frozen assets, and reputational collapse. They needed someone to buy them out before the company sank completely. That's when I slid the folder across the table. Inside, an offer. Not from a rival. From their daughter. Their stunned faces were worth every sleepless night I'd spent rebuilding myself from nothing. "You," my father finally said, his voice gravel and disbelief. "Hello, Dad," I said evenly. "It's been a while." He stood up, anger rising. "You're behind this. You're the reason." "I'm the reason you're still breathing in a house with running water," I interrupted calmly. "You should thank me." Mom's voice broke in. "Haley, please, we didn't know you'd." "You knew exactly what you did," I said. "You erased me from your company, your family, and your lives. But the thing about ghosts, Mom, they learn to haunt quietly." Silence blanketed the room. Even the executives sat still, afraid to breathe. I leaned forward, voice low. "Here's what happens next. You'll sign this merger, transfer 51% control to Helix Holdings, and step down effective immediately. In exchange, I'll keep the company alive, and your name's out of tomorrow's headlines." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You think you can threaten us?" I met his glare. "No. I'm offering you mercy." Mom looked at me then, not with anger, but something worse. Regret. Her lips trembled, and for a split second, she wasn't the woman who disowned me. She was just small, tired, human. "Haley," she whispered, "we made mistakes. We just wanted you to succeed." "By tearing me down?" I asked. "By treating me like a stranger?" Her silence answered everything. I signed the papers myself, sliding them to the legal team. "This meeting's over." As I walked out, I caught Samantha's eyes. She'd been standing in the corner, watching. Her face was pale, but not hateful, just heavy with the weight of what family had become. "Haley," she said softly, "you got what you wanted." I paused at the door. "No, Sam. I got what I deserved." That night, I drove out of the city again, rain streaking across the windshield like moving glass. My phone vibrated nonstop, calls from reporters, messages from shareholders, even texts from old friends suddenly remembering my number. I ignored them all. When I reached the overlook above the ocean, I stepped out into the wind. The sea roared below, angry but alive. Revenge had done what it was supposed to. It didn't heal, it revealed. I realized I didn't want to destroy them anymore. I just wanted them to know what being invisible felt like. My phone buzzed again, this time, Samantha. I hesitated before answering. "Haley," she said quietly. "They've lost everything. Dad's in the hospital. Mom barely speaks." I closed my eyes, the sound of waves filling the silence between us. "Then maybe now," I said softly, "they'll finally understand how it felt to lose me." Samantha didn't argue. She just whispered, "I hope someday you can forgive them. Or yourself." When she hung up, I stayed there for a long time, rain dripping down my hair, breath misting in the cold air. Forgive them? Maybe one day. But tonight, I wasn't ready. As lightning lit the sky, I whispered to the storm. They wanted me gone. I became the storm instead. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt like the truth they could no longer hide from. 3 months later, the Monroe estate stood empty. The marble columns, once blinding in the sun, were cracked and dull. The gate that used to buzz with security codes now hung open, creaking in the wind. I parked at the edge of the driveway, engine humming, headlights washing over the front steps where I'd once been told I didn't belong. It was strange standing there again, not as their daughter, not as their failure, but as the woman who owned the land beneath their feet. Inside, the air smelled like dust and fading perfume. Family portraits still lined the hallway. I stopped at one, me at 15, standing a step behind Samantha while Mom fixed her pearl necklace. Dad's hand rested proudly on her shoulder, not mine. I remember the photographer asking, "Want to move closer?" And Mom saying, "No, that's fine." That distance became permanent. Now, I traced my fingers along the glass frame and whispered. I moved closer anyway. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement Samantha. She stepped out from the old study, her eyes tired but calm. "You came," she said. "I had to see it once before it's gone," I replied.
She sighed.
They moved to a small rental.
Dad, can't work.
Mom barely leaves bed. I didn't want them to suffer, I said quietly. I wanted them to remember. They do, she murmured. Every day. For a while, we just stood there, the rain tapping against the windows like a soft metronome to our silence. You could fix it all, Samantha said finally. One word from you, and they'd have light again. You built everything they depend on. I shook my head. No, Sam. They cut the cord long before I did. She swallowed hard. Do you ever miss us? The question hung heavy. I thought of birthdays spent alone, the smell of my mom's cooking drifting through windows I wasn't invited to enter, the laughter echoing through walls I once called home. I miss what we could have been, I said, not what we were. Samantha nodded, wiping her eyes. You're stronger than all of us. I managed a faint smile. No. Just done being weak. We walked outside together. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, soft and forgiving. At the edge of the driveway, I stopped, turned back toward the house, and for the first time, didn't feel anger, just peace. Take care of them, I told her. You're not coming back? I looked out toward the horizon where city lights glowed faintly. No. I spent too long waiting for an apology that was never coming. I'd rather build something that never needs one. She nodded, tears glinting in the dim light. You really are different now. I smiled softly. That's what happens when you stop chasing people who love only themselves. As I drove away, the mansion disappeared in the rearview mirror, just a dark shape swallowed by the rain. My phone buzzed once more, a single message from Mom. We're sorry. I read it, stared for a long second, then typed back. Approved. And this time, it didn't mean revenge. It meant release. Because forgiveness isn't about letting them back in, it's about letting yourself walk out without looking back. The storm outside faded, the city lights reflected in my windshield,